Hello everyone, I am the Malamet Kirby, and welcome to my channel, The Commander Tavern. The Commander Tavern is a channel dedicated to my favorite Magic the Gathering format. The Brewery is a series on this channel showcasing my spicy brews and other deck techs. On this episode of The Brewery, I'll be discussing my take on a commander from Lost Caverns of Ixalan, Kutzil, Malamet Exemplar. If you like this deck or any of the cards I'll be mentioning throughout the video, please consider using my TCG Player affiliate link when purchasing those cards. You can find that link down in the description. It'll really help out the channel at no extra cost to you. But the very best way you can help support the channel is with my Patreon. There are plenty of perks for being a patron, such as early access to certain videos, exclusive deck techs, gifts, and more for as little as $1. You can also become a channel member for just 99 cents. Show off your support with a logo next to your name and exclusive emojis. Or you can always just support my channel for free by simply liking, subscribing, and sharing, which also helps out a lot. I put out a video every Monday, so you don't want to miss out. You can join my Discord server for free if you want to join the Commander Tavern community. All pertinent links are down in the description. Alright, let's get back to the episode. Kutzil is a 3/3 cat warrior for 1 generic, 1 green, and 1 white. It has a stacks effect preventing opponents from casting spells during your turn. This is such an amazing effect because it gives you peace of mind to not only cast spells, but to enter combat as well. As such, this deck is going to focus on creating the largest army possible out of tokens that are then massively pumped to overwhelm the board. This strategy is further supported by Kutzil's triggered ability. Whenever at least one pumped creature deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. Unfortunately, this is per player hit and not creature hitting, but it's understandable considering Kutzil's an uncommon. But these two abilities on a 3/3 creature for 3 mana is already pretty busted. That being said, Kutzil isn't original in either of these effects, especially the triggered ability. While great to always have access to in the command zone, the deck is running some redundancy thanks to Tadius Juniper Ascendant, Toski Bear of Secrets, and Oran Frostfang. Tadius' trigger is similar to Kutzil's in that it's once per player hit and not creature hitting, but Toski and the Frostfang are much better than these because they do trigger per creature hitting. So if we hit any number of players with 10 creatures, we draw 10 cards. Since we're expecting to create a ton of creatures, these help us draw tons of cards. As a bonus, Toski is indestructible and the Frostfang gives Death Touch to all of our attackers, so anything blocking them will essentially be a trade. Shamanic Revelation, Collective Unconscious, and Camaraderie are other card draw effects that take advantage of the deck's main strategy. Although one-time use only due to being non-permanents, they have the potential of drawing us a ton of cards when cast. Camaraderie is even better because it also gains us X life and it pumps our creatures +1/+1 until end of turn. So if we didn't have any other power increasing effects in play, it will pump our creatures with enough to be able to trigger Kutzil when they deal combat damage. So those are some nice bonuses from it. Tribute to the World Tree is an amazing effect in here, especially because it doesn't care if the creature is a token or not. If it has less than 3 power, it gets 2 +1/+1 counters, which is great for Kutzil. If we already had static pump effects in play, then the tokens will enter with a power of 3 or greater, drawing us cards instead. Imagine creating X creature tokens that enter with at least 3 power. We just threw X cards. Amazing enchantment. Minas Tirith and War Room also draws cards all without taking up slots in the deck. We have to attack in order to be able to use Minas Tirith and lose 2 life with War Room, but those aren't enough deterrents to warrant excluding them from the deck. Reliquary Tower, Thought Vessel, and Decanter of Endless Water are included due to how many cards this deck has the potential of drawing into. The last two have the bonus of being mana rocks, but with the deck being green, Soul Ring is the only other mana rock in here, since we're able to run all of the best mana acceleration spells, so mana rocks aren't necessary, especially with access to Farseek, Nature's Lure, 3 Visits into the North, Rampant Growth, and Glimpse the Core. These 2 CMC land-based ramp spells are so good in any green deck, but especially this one, due to all of the upcoming X spells we're going to see. But even better than these is Growing Rites of Itlimoc. This might whiff more often than not because there's only 12 creatures in the 99. However, it is very easy to transform this into Itlimoc Cradle of the Sun, which is a better Gaia's Cradle. Speaking of, you can also run it if you wanted to, but since even the gold bordered version is so expensive, I'm omitting it from my own deck. In any case, these lands help chain into so many X spells it's ridiculous. Having mentioned these X mana effects so often, let's finally see them, shall we? The deck is running Secure the Wastes, Awaken the Woods, Finale of Glory, Ixalgar's Call, March of the Canonized, Path of the Ghost Hunter, Defenders of Humanity, March of the Multitudes, and White Sun Zenith. All of these create X creature tokens whether on resolving or entering the battlefield. Of note are Awaken the Woods, since the tokens can be tapped for green mana, Finale of Glory, which can create X more tokens if X was 10 or greater, Horn of Valhalla, which becomes a game-ending equipment, Defenders of Humanity can do it again after a resolved board wipe, and March of the Multitudes, which can go beyond what we can pay in mana since it has Convoke. Notwithstanding, the deck is also running Farmer Cotton, Rested Menoptera Leader, and Galta and Maverin, which can create X creature tokens. The first two are essentially one-time only effects since it's when they enter the battlefield. But Farmer Cotton also creates food tokens that can be helpful, and Reston becomes insanely pumped with +1/+1 counters. Not only that, but it also pumps insects, which is exactly the kind of thing Kutzil wants in our attackers. That being said, Galta and Mavrin can create X creature tokens whenever we attack, and it doesn't even have to be attacking with Galta and Mavrin, all on a 12/12 Trampler for 7 mana. But wait, there's more. Grand Crescendo also creates X creature tokens at instant speed, no less. However, once created, it gives our creatures indestructible until end of turn, so we can keep mana open to pay just the double white, since it'll still give our creatures indestructible even if X was 0. Granted, this is more of a protective spell than a token creating spell, but we can neither save it if we don't have the extra protective spell or as a way to recover our board. The deck is still running other protective effects like Galadriel's Dismissal, Everybody Lives, Heroic's Intervention, Flawless Maneuver, Teferi's Protection, and Clever Concealment due to how dependent it is on winning via token beatdown. So keeping our board alive is a must, whether via indestructibility or phasing out. The deck is also running Akroma's Will, which has the potential of either protecting our board or ending the game. If we controlled Kutzil, we can choose both options, making it an even better finisher. The Seiju who shelters all is included in order to ensure these protective effects resolve. While our commander helps us during our own turn, sorcery speed board wipes happen in other turns. Last thing we need is a blue player countering our protective effect while the board wipe is still on the stack. Boseiju isn't a normal land though, so do not consider it as a land slot when building our decks. King Darien the 48th is another protective effect on a token creating card, but he doesn't create X tokens unfortunately. That being said, he's also a static pump effect while in play, and we can sacrifice him at instant speed for free in order to give our creature tokens hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Such an amazing card for this deck and its main strategy. Arachnogenesis and Galadriel Ambush are some more protective instants that create a ton of creature tokens. With these in hand, we can attack with total abandon, since any wave of attackers sent our way will potentially be entirely blocked by either spiders or elves, and then most of our opponents won't deal any damage. These spells are absolutely amazing here. Martial Coup and White Sun's Twilight are X spells with the potential of wiping the board if X is 5 or more. If our only board were to be affected by some global effect, we can turn the tides on survivors by blowing up everyone else's board while keeping X creatures up. As a bonus, the Twilight's creatures have Toxic 1, making it easier to kill off the table. And you know we can't have a tokens deck without Anointed Procession, Mandrak Glory Dominus, Parallel Lives, Doubling Season, Primal Vigor, and Ohetak Deepest Foundation. While these don't create tokens themselves, that doesn't matter because they all double the amount of tokens we create, with the last one tripling the amount of creature tokens we create. With multiples of these in play, we're essentially exponentiating how many tokens we create. Of these, be careful with Primal Vigor when facing against other token decks. Speaking of, it's still amazing here along with Doubling Season, since they also double the amount of +1/+1 counters we're placing on our creatures, making our token strategy even more brutal. Speaking of pumping our token horde, the deck is running effects like Restless Prairie, Beastmaster Ascension, Sovereign Akinek Ahau, Starlight Spectacular, Unnatural Growth, and Zopandrel Hunger Dominus. While all of these are dependent on combat, that shouldn't be an issue since the deck is very aggressive. For example, Restless Prairie, which doesn't take up a slot on the deck, can be animated for 4 mana, and then when it attacks, other creatures we control get +1/+1 until end of turn. So if no other pump effect is present, we can still trigger our commander. Beastmaster Ascension might require creatures attacking to gather counters, but once it does, the pump is a static effect. +5/+5 is no joke, especially when all we have to do is swing in with at least 7 tokens once or any combination in a couple of turns. Okinek is absolutely busted in this deck since it will give +1/+1 counters equal to the difference between base power and the modified power. If this survives for a couple of turns, which might be more often than not since it has built-in Ward 2, our creatures will become massive, especially when combined with the next 3. Starlight Spectacular is an absolute insane pump effect that I'm surprised no one uses. I've almost never seen this card being played by other players, even though it's eternal legal for lack of an acorn stat. The way this works is that you're essentially lining up your attackers, well, in a line. The first one gets +0/+0, but the next one gets +1/+1, then +2/+2, and so forth. So if you're attacking with 20 creatures, putting them in size order gives you a pretty balanced line of attackers, but having the 20th creature get +19/+19 is quite the feat. Unnatural Growth and Zopandrel double the power and toughness of our creatures at the beginning of each combat. That's right, these trigger even on opponents' turns. If we controlled a bunch of pump effects that trigger on combat, make sure to trigger these last because doubling is always greater than pumping, unless you control Okinek. Then have Okinek trigger after these for maximum pump. Gavany Township and Cathar's Crusade, True Conviction, and Akroma's Memorial are some more pump effects, with the Township not taking up a slot in the deck for being a land. Granted, you need 4 mana and tapping to give all of our creatures a +1/+1 counter, but it is 100% worth it. Cathar's Crusade is an static pump effect but when we're creating X creature tokens at a time, each one entry will give a +1/+1 counter to itself and everything else already in play, as well as having entered with it. So you're essentially also giving X +1/+1 counters to your creatures when creating those X tokens. True Conviction and a Chromosome Memorial aren't pump effects per se, but they're static effects that give impressive keywords to our creatures. Double Strike and Lifelink are already pretty impressive, especially when combined with the previously mentioned Oran Frostfang. But also gaining Flying, First Strike, Vigilance, Trample, Haste, and Protection from 2 colors excelling in damage and removal is absolutely busted in a deck like this one. Do not overlook them. Spear of Heliod, Mirari's Wake, and the Immortal Sun also provide a static pump effect but contain bonus effects as well. The Spear doubles as removal. Yes, we have to get hit first, but if we're going to survive, the creature won't. Mirari's Wake helps us accelerate our mana even further. This is absolute madness with the Resolved Awakened Woods. The Immortal Sun is yet another stacks effect since it shuts down Planeswalkers, of which the deck has none, but it also reduces the generic cost of all of our spells while also having us draw an extra card per turn. Lastly, Elish Norn, Grand Cenobite, is obviously included. Not only does she pump our board +2/+2, but also hurts other boards by -2/-2. So if we're facing against other token decks, we'll definitely have a leg up on the competition, so it's amazing static interaction. Speaking of, Damning Verdict is absolutely backbreaking here. If our creatures had any +1/+1 counters, then they'll survive the board wipe while our opponents more likely won't. This will help clear the way for our own attackers, especially since opponents can't cast spells during our turn, so they can't Teferi's Protection their way out of it. This is why Kutzil is such an amazing commander for this strategy. The Seiju Who Endures and Aura Shards are included to deal with any Pillow Fort type effects. However, with the number of creature tokens we're creating at any moment, Aura Shard essentially keeps our opponents free of artifacts and or enchantments altogether, so keep that in mind. Beast Within, Generous Gift, and Stroke of Midnight are included as catch-all interaction, even though the last one won't hit lands. But that's fine since this deck doesn't bend against Maze of Ith type effects since it's about fending off as many creatures as possible. Apart from those already shown, the rest of the deck is just the rest of the lands. It's running all 7 fetch lands, Canopy Vista, Temple Garden, Scattered Groves, Arctic Treeline, Radiant Grove, Command Tower, and Ancient Tomb, as well as Yamamaya, Cradle of Growth for color fixing, and 6 of each snow-covered basic land for the basic land ramp effects and Into the North. As with all of my deck techs, you can build your mana base according to your budget. Whether you include more expensive cards or even cheaper cards is up to you. You do you. This brew is just an idea of how to build around Kutzil Malamet Exemplar. I love these types of commanders where it's not necessarily clear what the best path to build them is, so regardless of how you choose to build it, I hope you got some ideas here. That being said, what I love most about Kutzil is that you have built-in protection during your turn as well as card advantage, right in the command zone, on a very cheap commander to cast, so at least for me, going wide with massively pumped creatures was the best strategy I considered for it. If you're interested in the decklist of this spicy brew of mine, you can find a link to it down in the description. I would like to thank all my patrons for supporting me, and a quick shout out to all my higher tier patrons, the brewers, for their patronage. I'd also like to thank anyone using my TCG Player affiliate link. That also helps out the channel. I also want to thank any channel members. Your membership is greatly appreciated. And to everyone, thanks for watching this episode of the Brewery on the Commander Tavern. I am the Malamet Kirby, and happy brewing.